unbelievable, the inconsistency. It's very, not just frustrating and makes you that little bit more anxious, but it's kind of sad because a lot of work is going into this app, HAPS. If you haven't already learned about it and what HAPS is all about, head over to haps.tv on the internet. That's their website, and where you can view and sign up as well if you don't already have an account. But of course you are viewing, otherwise you wouldn't be hearing this. Although that said, of course, I'm broadcasting on the HAPS app, but that also simulcasts to my other social media channels such as Facebook, Twitter, and of course YouTube, etc., etc. So you might be watching on there, but I do strongly recommend that you download the HAPS app for Android or iOS and follow on there, because then, if nothing else, you receive notifications when a broadcaster like myself goes live, and then you've got the option of watching there and then, rather than just checking up when if you sort of feel like it, and later on in the day or evening, and you check out the timeline on my account or others manually. Yeah, so what I was referring to was that, well, we like to go live often here and in our little community that's building at 11 minutes past the hour, specifically 11 minutes past 11 p.m. over the last few months and years, on and off various points, ideally regularly, but it's been a crazy year this year, putting everything else aside and any other time aside. So yeah, 11 p.m. locally to where I happen to be, which is London at the moment. And well, today we've tried to go live at 11 a.m. just because it's something that we're going to start doing a little bit more. But trying to go live was a nightmare. It seems to me that unless you have a perfect or near perfect internet signal, i.e. 4 bars, if that's the maximum that's potentially displayed on your device, if you don't have 4, 3.5, if that's possible, the app isn't happy. And I'm sure, I don't know, but because I haven't really seen much feedback from others on any forums, etc., something tells me that for the HAPS team it's probably best, because I don't think that the app on iOS is as stable as well it should be, etc., etc. I'm just looking back. You see, this is another thing. I did select to broadcast in a landscape fashion mode, and I can see now that I am, although it's broadcasting in landscape and not showing you a vertical portrait video picture, because I'm looking back on my main device here now, desktop device, I can see that I'm on my side, which is great, eh? Great. So what do you want me to do? That no. You just have to watch this. And well, anyway, on this occasion there's not much to see other than my face, and you see that plenty on and off. But ideally, you want to see what's happening in and around the area that I'm at. At the moment, I'm just at base, shall we say? So really, you're not missing anything at all, other than the daylight out there. The curtains closed. Often, I get the comment, "Don't you want any daylight? You know, do you just want to live in the dark?" Well, no. But if the window was open, because of the way the camera is, you just see a silhouette and everything. Anyway, listen, I hope you're doing well, people, and staying safe. Did you see the title here? It might not be news to a lot of you, but to anyone that isn't up to speed with what's going on right now on this day, the 30th of December 2020, it's Wednesday, hump day for a lot of people in general prior to the pandemic. And well, most days are a hump day for a lot of people at the moment, because every day people remind us, for them seems like a Sunday, particularly when they're furloughed and not working regularly or traveling to a different location for work as they are used to doing. And I say they, that might be you as well, very likely. But yes, I hope you're staying safe. But the news at the moment on this day, as we almost complete the year, is that the UK's National Health Service is overloaded. Something that anyone could have told you and predicted previously. A lot of people have, but the government, it's a whole conversation that we want to have at another time here. The government have been shocking, and nothing less than a ringmaster is our Prime Minister at a circus and in a big top. I can actually say absolutely confidently that I could have done a better job. And I very rarely put myself sort of in the line there. And when I say I could have done a better job, I mean with regards to the ultimate decisions that have been made and stated when that Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has stood up to the nation at a podium, a lectern, and announced, for example, that, well, in one breath on a Wednesday, the Wednesday before, well, actually it was about 8 or 9 days before Christmas, he announces that Christmas will go ahead as planned, as best as possible, and you will be able to mix with different households. On a Wednesday, he says that, but then on the Saturday following, 72 hours later, it was decided, no, that can't happen because the situation with COVID spreading was worsening incredibly fast. So they withdrew that initial advice and rule and told most of the UK that you're in effectively a lockdown. And again, they won't say lockdown because they think we're stupid, and they think that if they say lockdown rather than a tier 4, which is the most serious level, and they're calling the levels tiers here in the UK, if they call it a tier 4, then we won't really realize that we're almost, if not in a lockdown. And I don't know what they're playing at, these politicians, and that is the point really. I suppose it's just that the game that is politics is playing with people's lives and death, and we all know that now. But realistically, as I say, we're in a situation now where the government have just lost control of the virus, not just in the UK, but out of all the countries in the world, we're like in the top 5, I would suggest, when it comes to technology and being ahead of the game and ahead of the curve and having the capability and capacity to do so. But everything's just fallen flat on its face, one thing after the other. 7 months ago-ish, we were being told that the UK was going to have delivered a world-beating track and identify method and app so that people could download it and be reassured, and more to the point, so that we could literally keep track of where the virus is and how severe it was at any given time. But we're told to this date that it's failed. Billions of US dollars, billions of UK pounds sterling, billions of euros have been poured into this attempt. And that's just one thing. Our health service is overloaded. But wait a minute. During the first wave, like another number of nations, the UK rushed to build some temporary, huge medical facilities called the Nightingale Hospitals. Now, we know subsequently that actually that wasn't thought out too well, because you can make the whole country, every building, into a medical point and facility. But if you haven't got the human beings to operate the equipment there, or to have the experience for caring for the patients in any facility, you don't have a facility, at least not one that's going to be operational. And so the Nightingale hospitals, the problem there was, while they had plenty of beds at these facilities, thousands, they just didn't have the extra staff to take from the existing medical facilities and hospitals to the new ones. They couldn't do that, But they've known that now since that original build, and the Nightingale hospitals have subsequently been rested and closed down and tucked away and mothballed pretty much. But now, again, the government knew that winter was coming here in the UK. Of course, if you're in Australia in December, it's summertime and the southern hemisphere. But we knew the winter was coming here in England, London, particularly, where the virus is very severely prevailing at the moment and ensuing. And what attempts did the government make to train up or locate additional medical staff? The Prime Minister to date has not requested for the army to be implemented in any other way other than with the build of the Nightingale hospitals. They helped with transportation and the logistics there. But what is the shame? What is the hesitation? What is the problem, the fear of asking hundreds of army and service personnel to lend a hand? They're sitting twiddling their thumbs, half of them at the moment, waiting for a world war to start, I think. So while they do so, why is it not all hands on deck? And the way masks are going at the moment, and people wearing masks or not, more to the point, on public transportation, in stores, I mean, it's ridiculous. I heard on the radio actually just a few hours ago, probably about 8 hours ago, someone mentioned how it's illegal, unlawful for a shop here in the UK to sell cigarettes to someone under a certain age, 18, 16. And if they're caught, they're heavily fined, if not shut down ultimately. But that's probably an extreme, closing them down totally, or certainly for the first offence. But if that's the type of penalty that is paid for a sale to a minor, then what about people who are not bothering to wear their masks properly or at all, and just walking around with the I'm okay attitude, not to mention that you might be okay, but you still might be a carrier and pass this on to somebody intentionally or otherwise. And therefore, technically, the penalty for that surely should be higher, or as high as how much a store is fined when someone is sold a packet of tobacco or cigarettes unlawfully, illegally. But the store will allow people just to walk in without a mask and say nothing often. And even if there's security personnel in that store, particularly in the grocery stores, supermarkets, nothing's being done, nothing's said. The security personnel are afraid, understandably in this day and age, with the stabbings that go on in London, and now even more so these days, shootings and other unsavoury activity by criminals. But yeah, as I say, it could be fixed in an instant. Deploy the army, that's what I say, absolutely. And on trains as well, and public transportation where masks are not worn, heavy fines, and well, possibly ban that individual from public transportation and travelling on trains, buses for a certain amount of time as well. There needs to be heavier penalties. The UK in 2020, certainly younger people, there's an attitude out there of it doesn't apply to me. It isn't something I need to be concerned about. And there's a sense of lack of people wanting to work together and a lack of community even to this day. Although the sense of community in certain cities, while it was on the decline and got to an all-time low, it started to sort of be regenerated. But again, it takes certain individuals to bring the community together and say, yeah, we're going to do this, we're going to become a community again. But really, I mean, in other countries, particularly Spain, people are listening. If in Japan, yeah, if you it's not a case of telling people what to do, but telling them why you're requesting them to do it, then generally people listen, because they know that we need to work together as a human race ultimately. Because if we don't, what's the point? So again, my advice is be sensible to each and every one of you watching, even to those that aren't, and to myself as I go about my daily life. You know, when I head to the stores to buy food, I focus on what I need to do. I have a little bit of a browse if I want to, why not? But I'm wearing a mask and I'm not touching my face if I can remember and help it, you know. Although these days, as I say, when you go out there, certainly in the cities, it's almost as though life is back to some sort of regular service has resumed, you know, normal service has resumed. Anyhow, people, listen, I don't know where you all are with your comments and that. I realise it's early here in the UK. I also realise that another thing with the HAPS app is the issue of discovering a broadcast. That if you haven't already watched them and followed them, then to discover this broadcast is happening right now as I say this. A lot of people just wouldn't be aware, because there's the only way I can see on the platform to find a broadcaster is to search for them by name or by a keyword, and even then, when they appear in that search, you're not sure if they're live until you click on their profile. But if you want to find live broadcasts, well, you can discover them and go to the discovery section, but usually at the top 1, 2 or 3, they're the people broadcasting live. But as I say, it's not ideal for people that want to use the app to find out something, find out information, find out what's being broadcast live right now, or for that matter, find out if somebody has left a post, but it's a recording from earlier. Anyway, hopefully this will all be resolved even sooner rather than later. But anyhow, have to start sending a few messages to the HAPS guys and girls. Again, I know they're working flat out. I know this time of year is generally busy anyway, at the best of times for all businesses, but you have to be prepared for all that. A bit like the emergency services, the health service, the government that I've been speaking about in the UK. Don't talk the talk if you know you can't walk the walk. The truth is that I was speaking to someone recently about mental health services and the availability, and everyone out there that works in mental health and the organisations themselves, whether they're government or otherwise, they metaphorically hold that flag up 24/7, 365 days a year, and they say to you, if you need help, don't do something stupid. This is our phone number. We're here to talk to. We're here to help. But when you ring them, what do they say? Sorry, we're overloaded. Or, oh yes, let me have a look at my diary, our calendar. I think I've got time for you in 6 months. Could we fit it in 2:30 in the afternoon? When somebody reaches out for help in that ultimate moment where they have a realization that their life on drugs, their life of being abused, their life of perhaps, unfortunately, being born with a mental illness that they haven't really wanted to acknowledge, understandably, that nobody would want to acknowledge that they have an imperfection. And for clarification, none of us are perfect. But those who have a more noticeable mental illness and condition, when they reach out and they say to an individual, an organization, if not the world, maybe via social media in some cases, I need help. I would like help now, immediately. That person has, well, they're saying multiple things, and they are being one of the most strong mortals on the planet at that moment and in general, because it takes a lot. Because for a long time, often, someone in that position has been made to feel as though they're not worthy, they are different in a very negative way, and that they're not worthy of being helped, saved, etc. So I say to you people, stop being hoodwinked. Very difficult for me to hold back from using expletives, but it's not necessary. Stop being hoodwinked. Wake up. Yeah, I would suggest as well, if you're on this app at the moment, even if anyone not listening to this, if they're online and on HAPS, you're already different in a certain way, in a small certain way to the average people, because you're out there looking at something different, not just the regular traditional television and radio channels. So again, really think when people stand there and they are in a position of authority, just remember at the end of the day, it's their club. They all cover each other's backs. They don't want to use the word failure. They wouldn't say and be bold enough to stand there and say, actually, you know what, we did get it wrong, or we could have done it better. They just don't do that, because of course they're not like us human. Yeah, they're not, which is why that when you start having thoughts that are kind of hostile towards such people and disliking them, well, I guess it's quite appropriate, really, because they're not human. So all goes sort of full circle in the end. And I've had my little rant today, people. You can hear that. It's a shame we didn't have your input during this live broadcast. I know some of you are watching and just being quiet. Hello, Rose. You popped up at a moment there. Yeah, I think you popped up a little too late, actually, when I was talking about mental health and how those that will continue to metaphorically wave a flag saying, we're here to help you. They're lying bastards, a lot of them, particularly if they're politicians. Oh dear, I did use a naughty word in the end. Oh, it could have been worse. But yes, they'll make you think that the system isn't broken. Another point, the politicians over the last few weeks and months have stood there and blatantly said to people, oh, the system isn't overloaded. We can cope, etc., etc. But they've even said that at the point of the system almost collapsing. And they wait until it really does collapse. They wait until they can't hide the fact, because there have been, over the last few days, ambulances turning up at hospitals where they can't unload the patient in the back because there's just no room in the hospital. Literally, the floor of the hospital. It's like a lounge, a departure lounge in an airport when the plane and the flight is delayed or there's a industrial action and the staff are on strike. Yeah, it's literally like that. They are now attending to people, to patients, in the back of ambulances, in the cold, freezing weather. There was a woman yesterday, one of the staff who serves coffees and teas and refreshments to staff and patients, with her trolley in the car park of the hospital because, as I say, the actual building itself is overloaded. And this is a first world country, apparently. That's another point. All the politicians, while we are technically and definitively a first world country, we're not far off of being like a third world country when it's a situation like we find ourselves in now. And the system is underfunded. It has been for a long time, if not always. I'm talking about the medical situation again, also specifically mental health. Mental health was underfunded before any pandemic ever happened. And then to just leave it right now, we are at the end of a year of a pandemic, or at least 9 months of intense worry for a lot of people. And yet the government is still pretending that the mental health services are okay and they'll be able to cope. The backlog is incredible. You can't even imagine if you went to your general doctor, your GP in the UK today and registered and said, I need a referral, please, for a mental condition that I have. You probably won't actually have someone focus on you personally on a one-to-one basis and have sessions going, yeah, for another 12 months. It's the same as the court system as well. Family court or criminal court, small claims court, magistrates courts. At the moment in the UK, if you bring a claim and litigation today, the case will probably not be heard for another 18 months. And if you're 90 years old and you've got a case against your landlord or something, who knows, the landlord might win by default, because in 18 months, you might not be too well as a 90-year-old and end up dead then. And yet another person gets away with it. The landlord, that is, I'm talking about. Rose says, I was talking to my mum, saw you were live. Oh, thanks for joining me, Rose. Thanks for the support. And while I speak of support, everyone, don't forget, share, like, and follow. Certainly follow, ideally on the HAPS app. If not, Twitter and Facebook, definitely follow there. Over the next few weeks, once the new year begins, you could be a winner in a small way, if not a large way. To begin with, it'll all be small. But certainly, you want to be watching, because if you like things all London, all England, all United Kingdom, which is where I happen to be based at the moment, then keep following, because we'll be your eyes and ears here if you happen to be on, living at the moment in a different nation and territory around the globe. But as I say, there'll be plenty of opportunities for winners, and also for you to purchase things that you want to and that you see when we show you and you like, for yourself or for gifts. Rose says they are lucky. My mental health fundraiser raised 1,151 UK pounds. That's about 1,500 US dollars at the moment, the way the exchange rate is. I doubt they would do that. No, exactly, Rose. And I didn't hesitate, Rose. I mentioned when you came on here that you missed the mental health section. I implied you would be interested because you make it, well, it's no secret. You're public with your thoughts on mental health and the fact that you yourself have had to seek support previously, if not currently. But it's pretty shocking, that state of that system. Again, most people wouldn't know because they haven't had to engage with the services or try to. They've never been, luckily for them, they've never been in that position before. So therefore, it's one of those things of a need to know basis. But by the time you need the service, it's too late, because it doesn't really exist a lot of the time, not in a way that it should. Because again, people reaching out for support, well, generally they're doing so because the only other alternative they feel is possibly to not exist anymore. And then you have people saying, oh, that's tragic that happened. I didn't realise they were that bad. Well, what does it take for someone to get the message across for their friends and family to realise that the situation is so bad? Yeah. And often their calls for help are missed out. Yes, often they're too subtle, and people do need to be direct. All of us need to be direct. However we are in our state of mind, we need to be taught at school, and it should be part of the curriculum before we move on to further education. We should be taught at our secondary schools in the UK, if not sooner, that asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. It shouldn't be looked at or felt to be emotionally a problem. In fact, far from it. We should be encouraged to ask for help because it makes you a stronger person. I did get turned away first time as I wasn't depressed enough. I know exactly what you mean, Rose. I know exactly what you mean. Isn't that sick? So you've, as Rose has just stated here on this broadcast, she asked for help, but she was effectively told she wasn't ill enough. So what does someone do? Go away and what? Wait till they're a little bit more ill, or a bit more than more, or a bit more than that and more serious, or more serious than serious? This is just this is the point. There's so much lip service, so much talk, and not enough action. Yeah, overpaid politicians who are former barristers, lawyers, and judges out there. No idea what life is really like for, I say, the average person, those in a less fortunate situation, which is most people across the country. Even if they've got enough money and they live comfortably, that might be you. You know, the politicians, the people in parliament, the people in power and in authority, they still think they are above you morally. They think they're better than you, and they think they'll tell the world that they do understand the way you live, you and your circumstances, but they haven't got a clue. Anyway, everyone, I've just realised that I did go live at 11:11, just after actually, because of the technical problems trying to initiate the app, which I hope they sort out soon. It's now just after 11:41, so technically I've been here for 30 odd minutes. Yeah, 31 minutes now. So I think it's time for me to head off and be a bit more productive in the real world here. So I've got plenty of cleaning to do today. Whether or not I complete it or even complete half of it, I don't know. But I really want to do that because I think that's impeding some progress, and I need to. It's a bit like a bit of spring cleaning, a bit early for the new year. New Year's cleaning, yes. So I'm going to do that. Please do follow if you think you might be interested going forward in all things UK and England, and do like the sights and sounds, as I was saying earlier. And if you don't, well, thank you for stopping by anyway. And stay safe. Happy New Year. It's here, what, 48 hours time? Yeah, it's going to be a quiet New Year's Eve for a lot of people. And why not? Because, as I say, there's not going to be many firework displays like there usually are here in London and the rest of the UK. They don't want people to congregate in social situations to mean that people aren't socially distancing. That makes sense perfectly. You have a good day as well, Rose. Everybody out there, stay safe. Have a good day. I'll try next time and make sure that the, as I say, I've everything I have executed correctly here. Put the device correctly, the correct way round. Yet it does like to show up as being portrait, but in a landscape way, landscape in a portrait way. Yeah, you get me? It is landscape, this video, but for some reason it's twisted, a bit like those politicians' heads. Yeah. 40 years married, parents' anniversary for Rose. That's fantabulous news, Rose. Sadly, these days that's very, very or rare with new marriages in the last, what, 20 years? I would have thought 22 years. That's awesome stuff. My parents were married for a long time, so yeah. Thanks, Rose. Thanks, everyone, once again. I'll chat with you, catch up with you soon. In the meantime, head over to another broadcast now, why don't you? Bye for now.